And the first I'd like to invite on stage is Marta Sjögren from Nordzone, the premium venture capitalist in the digital space with companies like Spotify and many others. Marta, very welcome. Come up on stage. Have a seat. I steal hugs whenever I can. And then Daniel from Stronghold, you're also looking very much at this sector. So I would like to sort of have the dynamics of somebody coming, not investing that much in property technology before, but starting to look more at the sector, and somebody that is ODing on the sector and see how you look at finding value. And I also saw Jonas Birgersson here somewhere in the audience. Are you still here? Oh, you're here, but very well come up. Because for several reasons, every time I can hear you on stage, I'd like to do that because you're always very interesting. Secondly, you have been spending a lot of time building a company where you invest heavily in a future vision of the property technology market and how buildings are run. So first of all, Marta, a couple of words about Nordzone and you guys for the ones that don't that are not familiar with you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Marta. I am from an investment fund called Nordzone. We are a 21-year-old fund this year. We're officially an adult. We have 8 funds under management and about $1.5 billion in total under management. Our latest fund is a $400 million, 350-ish million euros fund, where we invest ticket sizes of anywhere between 1 and 30 million, where our sweet spot is 3 to 15. We are usually pure software investor. We have some hardware, software businesses, and PropTech to us is of interest because, as we're talking about the IoT side of things and also how property is moving from CapEx to OpEx type of budgeting, that's where we're seeing real excitement. And I guess I'm here also to learn from you guys because I must say I'm not an expert in PropTech, but I think I understand enough of the trends in the market just to be able to think in our fund terms, how do we make money in the next 5 to 10 years, because our fund cycle is a 10-year cycle. I've been with Nordzone for 6 years, and I look at early stage tech, so definitely right from that perspective.
Jonas, you have been, most of you know Jonas. We were camping together during the first dot-com boom, where you built companies like Framfab, Bredbandsbolaget, and all kinds of other things. And then you saw a vision of property technology much clearer and much earlier than anybody else, and that propelled you into Labs 2. And now, 18 years later?
Yep.
What is Labs doing?
Well, so Labs 2 builds a next generation end-to-end BSS OSS system. That sounds really boring, but that empowers us to do things in a sister company called Via Europa. And what Via Europa basically does is that it helps real estate companies to take its rightful place of the value chain. So just now, if we would take all of the rental apartments of Europe and we would transform that into the Swedish model, we would lower the price with 100 euros a year for the end users. Everybody would be on 100 megabit minimum. They would have an open choice, click on what providers you want. And the real estate companies would get what we call a second rent, which would be to the effect of 100 euros as a profit on each apartment per year that has this service. And
so it's basically a smart plug, and then you move all the intelligence to the plug rather than to the internet provider or to the satellite provider or
Yeah, so you could think of us from an end user perspective, you could think of us as an app store. You can pick and choose any kind of internet service provider, phone service provider, or any TV provider that you want. So there's built-in competition all along. But the key thing in the ingredients in the value chain is that the big providers around the world, they're building fiber. But what they're building to is fiber to the home. But it's not. It's fiber to your buildings. And then you don't get any part of the value chain. We think that is absurd. So we think that you should have what we call second rent on the cables and ducts inside your buildings. And at the same time, that means that all of your IoT projects can be better because you have your own IP networks that you can control and give to these lovely new entrepreneurs. But also that that all of them can be profitable because there's so much money in this, so that you can then reinvest part of the new profits in your IoT ventures.
And there we move over to you. You said you looked at 250 companies just last year. What are some of the things that you think is valuable with these companies, these property technology companies? What get your juices flowing?
But I mean, I think that from our end, as also a company group of also incumbent companies struggling to transform, I think startups provide a fantastic R&D opportunity for us. I mean, they think in ways that we don't. So I listen to 250 ideas on how to change our operating model, our business model. And I mean, as a business developer, that is like, I don't have to read 55 reports. I can meet startups instead.
But what do you think, if you invest in them or if you sort of champion some, what do they have in common? And we can make it a more general question. What do you look for in entrepreneurs? Not necessarily in IoT, but as a team, what do you look for?
Well, firstly, we look at the team overall, and we look for complementary skills, people who have some industry understanding, so they understand what problem they're trying to solve. And then we try to look at, the really wild ones out there who say, we don't really care about what the industry is, we're going to reinvent it anyway. The Daniel Eks of this world is similar, right? And then we look for really complementary skills between the tech, the commercial, and then the market perspective, I'd say.
Could you raise the microphone, please?
Yeah. It's quite similar. I mean, from our end, I mean, within our group of companies, we have most, type of knowledge about real estate there is. So for us, it's a lot about having a different perspective. They bring a technology or a deep tech component or competence that we don't have.
Jonas, you've raised a lot of. How much money have you raised in your venture so far?
Labs 2, the software development cost is currently $150 million.
Yeah. And previously with Framfab, probably another 150 or something?
Yeah, and then 300 million for Broman Company. Yeah.
And if you're entrepreneurs here, spill the beans. What should you think of when you take money from guys like these?
Well, first of all, don't take money. I mean, that's the first rule. And then if you really do it, think very, very careful about who you take money from, because it's a long-term. I used to say to young people, and today young people are so very serious. It wasn't that in our age. But it's a bigger decision who you accept money from into your company than who you marry. Because sometimes it can be a longer relationship, but it's going to be an intense relationship because it's going to be ups and downs, because if you're doing this with high risk.
On average, actually it is. We did the stats. On average, our relationships are longer lasting than average marriage.
That is funny. And so how do you get marriages to last then? How can you provide value for the companies that you invest in?
I didn't realize we were going to offer therapy.
Mental Note Start Therapy company, which I actually did, which is leading in Europe right now. That was 15 years ago. But what do you give to the companies that you invest in?
I mean, from our end, we started looking into investments into tech startups, two to 3 years ago. And then I came back with a fantastic idea, what I thought to the senior management, say that let's implement this into our, a couple of thousand buildings that we manage. And sort of wasn't quite as easy. So I mean, from my end, it's really about. So what we add to the property companies is really access to an ecosystem of buildings or property owners. I mean, we can introduce them to whoever they want to meet in real estate.
And you, when you work with companies, does really a Daniel Ek need any coaching, or how do you work with them? How do you sort of provide value for these guys, or maybe you don't for all of them? Or
no, I think most of the time they don't think we provide any value. And we actually had a funny, I think you were at that event. One of our latest AGMs a couple of years ago, we had Jonas Engelbert from Avito.
Yes, I remember that.
Was a super successful entrepreneur who's built Avito. We sold it for $2.7 billion 2 years ago.
Blocket in Russia, if you don't know it.
Blocket in Russia, and so we backed them since their super early phases. And then he came to our AGM and said to a room full of people like you guys, except our investors, so the people who put money into our funds, say, the reason why I love Northstone is because they're like that guy, and he points to Per Jørgen,
who is like really proud of his life.
Yeah, he's like, oh, great. Yeah, because he's asleep most of the time, but then when you need him, he wakes up, and then he's really great with the advice that he comes out with now. And I think you're nodding along. It's like, the best entrepreneurs usually don't really need us. The best entrepreneurs just want to kind of pick up the phone and say, I need more money. This is why you should put more money. And if you don't, you're an idiot. And that's basically it.
Yeah,
But
you're not being completely truthful, because also internationally, and I go around, I'm mostly not here, and if somebody has an investment from North Zone, they're taken seriously internationally, and people would dare jump ship and come work for them, or others would want to invest, and
So,
that's, I think, is a very high value.
yeah, I think like that. I was semi-joking, but also quite serious when it comes to what the entrepreneurs think. But I guess from an ecosystem perspective, we try to help with the clout around being able to hire the right people, being able to move people from various portfolio companies as they climb up their own career ladder. If we try to help think about your capital needs over a longer period of time. As I said, our funds have a 10-year life cycle, so we tend.
And what are some sort of what are the returns on the better funds that you're having? What kind of returns are you looking at?
Are we under NDA? No.
Yeah.
So we're definitely across our 8 of the funds that have returned. So across 6 funds, we're top decile, top quartile globally on all of them, and top decile globally as well on 2 of them. So that means anywhere between 3 and 6 times, I think, on average returns.
Yeah, if you have less than that returns on your own money, maybe you should consider investing in venture capital. But Jonas, your vision of I want to come back to that, of the future ownership of houses. So you would have rents from tenants, okay, I get that, but then you would have what you call the second rent. And that is basically taking that money from the telcos, and anybody that wants to innovate and get access to your tenants, they have to pay you as a real estate owner.
Absolutely. So you're building one of the biggest parts of the investment of a fiber to the home value chain is the last 100 meters, and most of that is included inside the real estate, and you don't get paid for that today. And that is really, really not helpful, because you are the one person that can actually also intervene for the end users. So if you look at the US, for an example, you have a completely not good situation where you have basically a cartel of 3 people, and you have 350 million people, and you have a handful of addresses in the whole US where you have multiple infrastructure. What a coincidence. But the real estate company is big enough to actually promote and get the right kind of deals, not only for the end users, so you get choice and you get the right price performance, but also so that you can use that platform. So you can build one platform, not multiple infrastructure, one infrastructure for the end users, but also for all of your IoT needs for your digitalization, but also for anything with the smart homes, and being able to provide that to the community. If you want to have, intelligent elderly care and these kind of things, it all has to go through the real estate. And you're not participating today, and you're not getting paid for sure.
Who hates you?
Everybody.
No, but there must be a lot of players wanting a different business model to win.
Well, so very simply, you could say that if real estate stepped up and did the smart thing and worked with an ecosystem of great entrepreneurs, you would basically be able to scrap at least 2 industries, and that's the power companies and the telecom companies. Smart real estate, you don't need those.
Kind of mind-boggling, right? And what do you make your money on?
Well, so you need then to have somebody to run the smart ecosystem for you. So you say that, okay, if somebody have access to this, I want to be part of that. I want to create a neutral product. The key here is the neutral product. You can invest in sensors, you can invest in fibers in your buildings. If you can build a neutral product, you don't have to choose which one of these great people is the winner. You can say all of them have access to my neutral product, and every end user pick and choose whatever version of their app they want. And then you have a revenue share. We just happen to run the system that takes part of the revenue share, and we take a cut of it. If there's no new money, we don't get paid.
So that's one example of an exciting new model. What are other things that you think will happen in the real estate space, be it systems or IoT players or others, that if you want to put money in something, where should you put that money? What are some of the things you see? And I know you're not an expert in the field, but you see a lot of IoT companies.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that we should look out for?
I mean, there are a couple ways to answer that, right? In the smart building side of things, you have the whole the virtual infrastructure, as I think you're referring to it, which I believe is a very exciting area. We have a company we've just invested into that's talking about building virtual labs. One of the most expensive elements of educating more STEM students is the labs, and building and running labs is extremely expensive. They're talking about getting those budgets dedicated to digital labs.
So digital chemistry labs, digital biology labs.
So you have
in schools.
digital property kind of for simulations of real life things. In the IoT space, I guess you have the whole, we have a bunch of companies that are looking at the user experience of a building, getting an NPS of how was your day in this building.
Net promoter score.
Sorry,
Yeah.
net promoter score of going through an experience of being in this room. What could we be doing better? So real-time engagement with the users is, you just couldn't imagine this even 5 years ago, but today you can, and I think in the next 2 or 3 years with the type of kind of sensor technology we're seeing being implemented, you're going to see a lot more of that, so that you go from from the property owner defining what the value of an object is based on the investments made, and similar in the market defining what the price might be when you want to sell it, to seeing how do people actually feel in this building. I think that's the era we're entering that I think is super exciting, and being able to define, how have I made up my ecosystem around the initial kind of the grains of what the physical property
That is funny. Would you like to live in the happiest building in Kungsholmen?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to pay some extra for that.
Right.
But I mean, we see parts of that happening on the branding side in Miami, where I live. One building next to another, and there's like 3 times more expensive apartments because they have a logo, it's a little cat, and there's a story, and there's some bells and whistles, but there's a lot of branding, kind of like you see here, Östermalm versus something else, but there's on a building level. What do you think are some of the sort of the sweet spots for investment?
I would say sort of really long term. I would say looking quite deeply into the blockchain technology, because I mean, if you see what a building really is, it's really similar to a bond or any sort of other tradable security. But what really is lacking is what Matt said, that structured data. But with smart buildings and that type of technology, you can have structured data, and in a blockchain you can store it, and then you can cut a lot of the inefficiencies out of the equation, and then you could start trade, buildings in the same way that you can trade any security.
Seems like you two should be talking more.
Yeah.
No, but anybody that feels like I really understand what blockchain is, raise a hand.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay.
Should we ask them?
No, I was going to do that, but then I don't like exposing liars. It's like you ask an audience. It's like you ask an audience. Anybody tried porn surfing ever? And say nobody did. Yeah, that's why we have you. Oh, that's it was a joke, but now we know. Anyway, and then I usually say afterwards, like, I know I'm with a bunch of liars. This is going to be interesting. But no. So the blockchain technology. Would you like to explain what is blockchain? And then I'll explain what he explained.
No, so very simplistically, I mean, what you can do is that you can create an unforgeable, with today's technology, ledger, which means that you can make transactions, and you can do transactions at a very, very low cost, but with a very, very high trust.
Yeah. So what he tried to say was, it's like if you would write in the sky, Jonas will get 1,000 euros if he opens the key box at my apartment. And then when that happens, he gets 1,000 euros, if that happens. We can't change that. I don't have to trust Jonas. I trust it's spray painted in the sky for everyone to see. It can never be removed. So you can write anything in stone, and then that is true. So therefore, I can say, here is bitcoins for you, because it's written here that I gave it to you, right? And that can change everything. Why do you need lawyers? Why do you need a bank? Why do you need a middleman? Why do you need... so the people that believe in blockchain think it might be even bigger and more transformative than the internet. And there's a lot of blah, 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 blah going on as well. But it's something to keep your eyes on. And you would invest in that long term?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if we see to our own property management business, I mean, how much time is spent on ensuring when we take over a property that we have the right documentation, and also if you see a transaction process, all the guarantees, all the lawyers, all the everything to ensure that a property is, a building is a building, and the owner is an owner, and things like that. Cutting that out is interesting.
And you, are you investing in blockchain?
We are. We've. I don't know if that's official. I don't think it is. But
they're unofficially interested in blockchain.
No, but we've made one investment, and I think we're on the way towards closing the other one. I'm not sure. I'm not working on that one. But what we see already is that we are very much within. Deep within what we call the trust economy. We have a couple of companies working with this, Trustpilot being, I think, the biggest one, with just reviewing your experience with businesses online. This business has been growing like wildfire, and it's all about, you know, how do we make decisions today as consumers, as businesses probably with a little bit more diligence, but with as consumers, you know, you're going to go online, you're not going to search for your whatever, your fancy watch. You're going to see what do people think about it. And the next wave in terms of the trust economy really is, frankly, the blockchain. In terms of the trust is already there, you just need to authenticate and distribute it more evenly.
And I can just give an example. You're familiar with Elon Musk. He's building Hyperloop, a train between San Francisco and LA, 12 minutes.
And Helsinki and Stockholm.
And Helsinki and Stockholm and some other places. They needed more programmers. So they put up in the blockchain that anybody that works with programming for us 10 hours in a week will get shares automatically in Hyperloop in connection to how many hours they put in. And then the day after, they had 960 programmers from all over the world hacking away, solving their problems. And if they would expand that to 10,000, they could do that quite easily. That's the power of blockchain. And they've never met these guys, but they know that they're actually put in the hours and the shares was awarded. So why would you need a stock exchange in that world, right? So it's quite an interesting technology. So
And just one last reflection on that, because also one of the big trust issues that we talk about today in democracy, but we never connected to the blockchain. If you connect the blockchain to social media, then it's much harder for example, as an example, Russian troll farms to interfere in the American election.
And that so the trust economy comes, it's not cybersecurity anymore, it's like trust, and why should I trust something? If you're a heroin dealer from Afghanistan, you have trust points on the dark web so that people can trust you that you deliver good smack, because otherwise you would be out of business. So it works also in the illegal world. If you're a high-ranking heroin dealer, or if you have, believe me or not, ladies and gentlemen, fair trade cocaine from Peru instead of from Colombia, you can charge more money and you get more buyers. Part of the trust economy. How do I know all these things? But so I'd like to finish off with hearing who would you be interested in partnering with, or what kind of things would you want to have out of an audience like this, and when should they come to you?
I mean, so many of the companies here I've already met. So I mean, from our end, I think it's guys like Akash from SpaceD, and you know, trying technology in all our different areas, both in property management, in transaction, and the different things. Trying them out, not necessarily putting money in, but opening up the network, the ecosystem, because we benefit from learning from them. So I mean, from my end, I'm looking for everything.
Marta, when should they call Northzone? What kind of companies would you invest in?
Yeah, I mean, we're anybody raising, you know, 3 to 20, 15 million euros, dollars, whatever, and looking to take over the world with their technology within PropTech. It's as broad as that. And then if you are already invested in this and would like to partner up with people who invest for a living, but just in software, then we're more than eager to co-invest with whoever has complementary skills as well. So please do reach out.
Did you get that? So if you want to invest in a company, but you're not really used to venture capital investment, you can call these guys partner up, and you have industry expertise, but they are very good at venture investment. So that is also an opportunity. Jonas, when should people call you?
Well, so basically, if they want to stop getting screwed by the telephone company, then that's a good idea. And also, I mean, just look at the numbers. So if all of the real estate, all of the rental apartments of Europe was on the Swedish model, then basically there would be a transfer of annual profit of 7 billion euros to the real estate sector instead of the telecom sector. And we do that a few years, and we don't have to have a telecom sector. Life will be beautiful.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for sharing.